My name's David Clayton. My website is thewayofbeauty.org. I'm going to recommend to you today that everybody read, if you haven't already, Ben Shapiro's book, The Right Side of History: How Reason and Moral Purpose Made the West Great. I've just listened to this on audiobook and I thought it was terrific. What it does is tell us the story of who we are in the West and why the West is, and the ideas, and so I mean Western Europe and America, and particularly America. Ben Shapiro is an American. Why it's so good. If there's one idea which seems to unite people today from all walks of political life, it is the converse. It is the idea that America is bad. You have the people on the left who think that the problem is that America was founded on slavery and oppression and oppressive capitalism. And they don't like it. And they don't like the America of today because they think these things still pervade. And if you were to summarize it, you'd say that, in short, the place we live in is just too American. On the other hand, you have conservatives who think that the principles of the founding of the US encapsulate what is good about the West. I would agree with that. But they feel that the left is too dominant and America is just not American enough. So they think that the America of today is bad because it doesn't correspond to what they feel America ought to be. And then the world in which I live, is a particular sort of conservative, in the Catholic world particularly, who think the problem in America is that it's America. That, in fact, the Constitution is not good, the American Constitution. It encapsulates a West that is in many ways post-Christian, represents all that's bad that came out of the Enlightenment, particularly the view of the individual and of personal freedom. And so therefore, their problem with the America of today is that they don't like what's on the left and all that they're doing to the culture, but really they don't like what the left are fighting against either. The America the American principles that are contained within the Constitution, for example, and their problem is that they don't like either, and that really they would rather that we weren't America, that we were Europe of about the 14th century or something like that. Now, Ben Shapiro's book has an answer to all of these people. His first point is that America is good. We live in a good place. Life is good. And furthermore, in many ways, it's better than it's ever been. If only we could recognize it. So he brings a raft of statistics to show how, in material terms, things have never been better. And so for anyone who starts to justify things in material terms, then he has lots of answers to this. He then, of course, acknowledges that it's not all about material matters, that he goes on to describe how, despite this, there is more unhappiness around than ever before. Again, citing statistics of suicide rates and that sort of thing, and asks the question, how could this be? And points out that if the views of these unhappy people predominate, we risk losing what we have today, which is really the best place in history that man could have been born. And if we just keep doing what we've done, however bumbling we might be, however imperfectly, it can only get better. I think this is right. And in order to equip us to keep us on the right track, he gives us the story of the West, which he says necessarily comes out of the Judeo-Christian worldview emanating from the Bible, and especially going right back to Genesis, in which man is made in the image and likeness of God and is given, accorded by God, personal freedom. And he explains how this fused with the philosophy of the Greeks has given us a purpose and has created, when we act together, a society which, and I agree with him, is as good as any that we have lived in. So while he acknowledges all the problems of the left, for example, which I share, the atheist, materialist left, that is fighting to take over the culture, they're not there yet. What we have is still good. And we, if we want to, if we have the will, can retain it, because we have what is good and right and beautiful on our side. This book, in order to make this argument, introduces us to all the philosophical story of the West. So what is good and bad, from Aristotle and Plato, from the ancient Greeks, right the way through to people like Marx and Hegel. And so, and he shows how these views have rejected or accepted, have worked with the faith that comes from the Bible. And as such, this, I suggest, is a book that would be a great introduction to the story of who we are for high schoolers or perhaps first-year university students, or just anyone. It assumes a reasonable intelligence, but not a deep knowledge. And that means, therefore, that he takes the trouble to read all these figures, distill out of them the essential elements, and explain from first principles what they have contributed. People like Kant, for example. And if you've ever tried to read any Kant, you know what an advantage it is that Ben Shapiro did that for us. So that is recommended. And for Catholics who are worried that he's not interested enough in the Catholic worldview, I would say that you can read this in conjunction with Samuel Gregg's book on the subject, and which I have reviewed, and reviews of both of these books I will put on my website, The Way of Beauty. So here is Samuel Gregg's book in screen share, Reason, Faith, and the Struggle for the West. So this does a similar thing, and it's aimed particularly at those Catholics who are traditional and hostile to the good stream of thought in the Enlightenment, which is consistent with Christianity, who tend to deny that anything good came out of the Enlightenment. And that he shares a vision with Ben Shapiro, but Sam Gregg's book is aimed particularly at Catholics, and I know many Catholics will be watching this. So I would say read both of these, Reason, Faith, and the Struggle for Civilization by Samuel Gregg. It is excellent. And here is the Amazon page for Ben Shapiro's Right Side of History. And for those who want to know more before they take the trouble to purchase either of them, I'm going to publish reviews of both these books on my website, thewayofbeauty.org. So that's it. Speak to you soon.